Hello, everybody. I hope this is being recorded. Certainly hope so. I'm not sure what to expect from this. This is a presentation for give me a moment, the Affordable Education Resources Committee, the Affordable Educational Resources Committee. And it's for really math faculty who have never used MyOpenMath. At this point, most math faculty know of or have used MyOpenMath. I was not sure if people were going to show up, but thought I'd do my due diligence here and go ahead and record this so that other people can access the video recording later on if they need some kind of hands-on, maybe not hands-on, but an intro to MyOpenMath if you've never used it. So let's go ahead and just hop into it. I'm all by myself here, but I don't mind. I can do this. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me a moment. There I go. I've shared my screen. And what you can see on my screen, hopefully, let me just double check. I'm sure you probably just see this right now, is my, actually, let me just double check. I want to triple check that I'm sharing my main screen. Yes, I am. Okay. Okay. Just making sure so that I'm not spending the entire time talking about MyOpenMath and showing things that you guys will never see. All right, so this is MyOpenMath. It's accessed through myopenmath.com. And I see that Andy's just jumped in. Hi, Andy. How you doing?
Hi, I'm sorry. I
Hi.
I got stuck in another meeting.
That's
Um,
all right. That's perfectly okay.
did you start
Um,
recording?
I already did.
Okay, perfect. All right,
Perfect. So what I'm going to do is kind of cover how to use MyOpenMath, start up a course, that type of thing. There's nobody in here, but I figure if we record it, at least people can access it later on.
perfect.
Yeah, perfect. So you can stick around if you want to find out about this stuff. You don't have to.
I do actually because I might get questions. So I do have
Sure.
a My Open Math account, and I looked at it just this morning and thought I'm not exactly sure how to use it. So
yeah,
this would be great
yeah,
for me.
perfectly fine. Yeah, MyOpenMath is an open source homework system, and it embeds very nicely into Canvas. Very easily into Canvas. In fact, seamlessly into Canvas. Let me actually get one of my Canvas courses up here so you can at least see, and I'll keep it to where you can't see the student names, but let me at least get this over here and I'll just show you. Now you can see my Canvas screen here. So if I go into, just to showcase what it looks like from the student standpoint, if I go into the uh, modules area where it will initially embed, you could see that the way I've organized things, I organize things into units, which are basically exam sections. And then within the unit are the homeworks and also other things that I put in there. But the important part is the assignments that get pulled in from MyOpenMath. Now, this one is due on the 11th of April, so I'll go ahead and just open up this so that you can see what a MyOpenMath assignment looks like before we get into the nitty-gritty details. So opening this up, I just click on it. And what's beautiful about the embedding process into my Canvas from MyOpenMath is that students do not need to create a MyOpenMath account. Wonderful. Because it's just one less thing that you have to worry about your students figuring out. Once you have linked the MyOpenMath course to your Canvas course, all of your roster from Canvas gets downloaded into MyOpenMath and then starts syncing back and forth as far as the grades, the MyOpenMath assignment grades. So your students don't even have to ever touch as far as the MyOpenMath website. They don't have to worry about it. I'm just going to start this, and then you could see that I always start the very first questions always a precursor unless otherwise stated. All problems should be done by hand without the use of calculator, yada, yada, yada. That's just my thing. You change those to whatever you want, but the questions look like this. Convert the following angle, right? I'm just going to hop through so you can see the styles of questions. These are numerical responses. They have little hints in there like what is expected. The student could click on more to see exactly what's expected. You can also, and again, I'll showcase this in a bit, but I think it's best to show what the end result is first so you can see, oh, I'd like to get to that. And how do I get there? We'll talk about that in a bit. You can turn off this message instructor feature if you want to. I like to leave it on because if my students get stuck, they can just click on this. It'll open an external window. I'll just click on it so you can see it. And it actually does open a MyOpenMath window. Again, they don't need an account. But the most important thing about that, having that message instructor option enabled on the MyOpenMath website for the instructor purpose, is that it embeds that student's specific randomization to that specific problem in the message they send you. I always encourage them to not just click send, but instead to describe what they tried to do. So they might say, words, 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 words to describe what they tried. A lot of my students will also embed an image of their handwritten work so they could show like, hey, this is what I've tried to do. And believe it or not, a lot of people don't believe this when I first say it, that students get really, really savvy and somewhat excited about using the background LaTeX system. If you don't know what LaTeX is, you don't need to, and that's perfectly fine. But if you do know what it is and you're like, wait, hold on, this supports LaTeX? Yes, it does. So the way you do it is start it is with an escape character, which is the button. Gosh, I can't even think of the word, but the button on the keyboard to the left of the number 1. It looks like an apostrophe, but it's backwards. It's that right there. Once you hit that button once, you've entered LaTeX mode. And if I type f of x is equal to, let's just pretend, 3 over the quantity x plus 1 and quantity, when you arrow out of it, it transforms it into LaTeX code and prints it out nicely. My students, seriously, for all levels, doesn't calculus above or below, they all really enjoy this feature because I try to sell them on the fact that it does get used in science a lot. So when you're writing research papers or studies in your upper division or graduate level courses, you have to know LaTeX. And it's kind of a nice, easy precursor to that. So it's like a twofer. They're learning mathematics and they're learning how to do like the report style, what they'll have to do in mathematics. Anyway, the most important feature that I'm trying to tell you about here is to leave that message instructor on so that when they email you, instead of saying, I'm lost on number 2, and you're like, wait, what's number 2? Or what version of number 2 do you have? You can actually see their version. Very important. Other than that, that's all I really wanted to mention as far as what the student sees on their end. If I just go forward again, you'll see there's a lot of actual cool things they could do here. Okay. Just depending on the problem. And when they're done with the problem, they click submit, and that saves their answer. When they're done with the assignment, as long as they've clicked on submit or hit enter every time they've answered a question, then it'll save that answer in the background. So you'll see it as an instructor. Okay. It automatically grades if that question is an automatically graded question, which 96% or greater of the questions within MyOpenMath are automatically graded. However, there are some, I don't know if there are any on this assignment, but there are some that some people have coded. Myself, I generally like the ones where it requires students to do things by hand and upload their work. But that's very rare. And you can see some problems have embedded pictures and all that fun stuff. Just seeing if there's an uploadable problem here, but I don't see one. All right, not a big deal. Anyway, this is automatically graded. It makes your life a lot easier. Okay, that being said, let's hop back to MyOpenMath and just talk about how would you, as the instructor, generate or build a course so that you can host it for your students and use that in your classes. At CRC, you have a lot of options. Once you log in to your MyOpenMath account, and just to log into MyOpenMath, you just go to myopenmath.com and you can sign up for an instructor account right there if you don't have one. It takes a couple days to get kind of approved in the system because they want to make sure that you're an instructor and not a student. So it takes a couple days to get that instructor access approved. But once you're approved, you just log in and your main screen will look a lot less busy than mine. Mine's typically super busy because I've taught using MyOpenMath for many years, much more than this. In fact, they just delete to save space. They delete courses after a while. But if you're an instructor at CRC in the math department, you have a lot of options when you go to build a course. So I'm going to, for this discussion, talk about Math 400. And that's mainly because of legislation coming up where in fall 2025, all incoming STEM students must be placed in Math 400 or above. So I figure that's just the easiest one to talk about. Although, to be honest with you, what I'm going to show you will work pretty much for all levels of courses if we have a master course already built. So what you'll do is on the left-hand side of your screen, which is going to be pretty blank on your when you initially sign up, it's going to be a lot of courses you're teaching, nothing. But at the bottom of that should be a button that says add new course. That's what you want to do here because you want to prep your course before you import it into Canvas. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Add new course. And sorry, let me hop back because I think, yep, I have to log in again because I was doing something within Canvas. Sometimes it will log me out. So let me log me in. There you go. That only happens when you fiddle with Canvas and then come back to MyOpenMath. It's not a big deal. But let me click add new course. And you see you have some options. You can start with a blank course. That's the hardest. That's like starting with a clean slate. You really only want to do this if nobody has at your campus developed the master course for that already. That's not going to be the case at CRC. At CRC, we have already developed templates to work from. So let's go ahead and copy a template. And there are two different versions of templates here. There's one that is copy a template from a promoted course. And that would be if you're not at CRC and maybe you're just looking at copying a template of a course that, let's say, for math for the trades or something like that. I'm just going to show you what that looks like. You can see here, there are already a lot of courses that are templated into the system. Unfortunately, it doesn't say how old these courses are. And also, they're kind of coded to certain other institutions. Luckily, you can kind of compress this down. So let's say you're teaching, let's say a TREG course or something like that. Then you could see there's a subset, but and you can actually see here's the CRC one. I probably wouldn't do that one, mainly because I think I've updated it since. So if you're at CRC, I wouldn't go this route, but if you're not at CRC, this is a good way to go. You can look through and preview these courses if you want to and see what they look like. We'll do that in a moment with the copy from my or a colleague's course, because that's the way you're probably going to go. I'll click on that. Now, if you're copying from, if you're at CRC and you're copying from a colleague's course, if it's a templated course, it's probably one of mine. And I'm only saying that because I've been using MyOpenMath the longest at CRC, and I've created all the templates. And so it's just kind of how it is that you're probably going to have to go to your group's courses, because if you're a CRC instructor, I will be in your group. So if I click here, you'll see all of the instructors that you're using MyOpenMath at CRC. There's quite a few duplicated people here. You can see on my end, I don't see Roy Simpson. And the reason why is because I am Roy Simpson. So I am going to do it slightly different than what you would do. I'm going to go to my courses. However, beyond that, it's basically the same. So if you're looking for my courses, you're just going to, mine being Roy Simpson, you're going to go to my group's courses. You're going to find my name. So I'm just going to click on Sang's name here, the plus sign by her, and you'll see a list of my courses. Under my courses, I organize them by semester, and also you can see a group called master courses, and those are the templates. So if you're going to teach, let's say 400, then there you go. I would click on that. And then that pretty much gives you everything. If you're a little bit concerned about whether that's the right course for you, you can click on preview. If you click on that, something was supposed to happen. Oh, maybe I didn't click on it. There we go. If you click on that, you will see a preview of the course. And the course is organized by chapters. And then if you open up a chapter, for example, chapter 2, you see that's organized by sections. It's pretty simple. And if you open up, each of these are folders with the arrows there. So if you open up section 2.2, you can see there's a dummy assignment there. I say dummy, but it's just basically a template assignment. You can modify that once you've copied the course or keep it as is. I highly recommend keeping it as is. Honestly, you don't want to remove content unless you have a specific style where you're like, I'm project based or something like that. I get that. But I highly recommend using the problem sets that are listed here as a really strong foundation for building your course. Some people really don't like to give assignments per section. They like to give assignments per week, and that's perfectly fine. That just means you have work in front of you to organize that. All right. So what I'm going to do, go back to this page, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy that Math 400 course. I'm just going to do it right now. So once you've selected the course that you want to copy from the master courses, and by the way, if the master course is not here, I do have a Math 401 master course. I just haven't moved it into my master courses. And I have a Math 420 master course. I just haven't moved it into the master courses. And there's a 372 and a 373 master course, which I have not moved in there because I'm still editing those, but they will be there by summer.
Hey, Roy, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I was looking at this earlier today, and I noticed that all of your courses have the little copyright symbol next to it. And then there was a little message that said something like, if it has this symbol, you have to email to get permission.
Huh.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if that's just a default. Look, they're all kind of defaulted that way.
Yeah.
Except for these down here. So I wonder, it's probably a setting I have to change on my end. Yes,
Okay.
I wonder. Let me just go to my end here and go to my master courses. And let's just see. I'm going to go to my course settings. You're going to have to do this anyway in the long run. So let me just see here if there is some type of, no, there's no setting in here that I can see
Okay.
that says anything about copyright. So there's something in there that maybe I have to change. It's not copywritten, honestly. And there's nothing, everybody's copied this, this course for quite some time. So I'm not 100% sure why it defaults that. There's no place I can change it on here.
Okay.
Because if I, yeah,
but if somebody it's something like it required the course key to continue. If somebody didn't have that and they reached out to you, you'd be willing to share that.
Absolutely. And in fact, I just recently changed the 400 to say, allow other instructors to copy course items. Yes, without the key.
Okay.
Because for a long time, I did only allow it for group members, but now I just opened it up to everybody. So maybe that's what the difference is. I'm not sure, but maybe that's what the difference is. Okay. All right. So I'll go ahead and click add new course. Again, copy from mine or a colleague's course. You would copy from your group here. You'd see my name and you would go ahead. Once you see my name, you'd open that up and you'd, let's say, copy the Math 400. You click continue at the bottom and it presents you with this page right here. I would honestly rename at least the course. You don't have to, but I personally like to organize this. So I'll just say this is fall 24. That's how I'm going to name it. Doesn't really matter to me. As far as enrollment keys, this is something that Andy just mentioned. This is only necessary, the enrollment key is, if you're not going to embed this into Canvas and you're going to have students enroll directly into MyOpenMath, actually log into MyOpenMath. And that's something that I'm trying to discourage people from doing because we'd like to have all of our information just on Canvas. You don't want your students to have to go to 2 different websites. So I wouldn't bother with the enrollment key. As far as course copy options, you can keep everything here as is. It's perfectly fine. Nothing's going to break if you turn on the other things or turn them all off. However, I have aligned every question in the Math 400 text to our student learning outcomes. And if you want to track that information, it's not required, but if you wanted to track that information, leave that checked, right? So I generally just keep all this stuff checked. As far as availability and access, again, pretty much defaulted to the right stuff. You don't have to have start and end dates because Canvas is going to set that for you. Excuse me. As far as start and end times, I probably would change that. I personally like my assignments to be due at 11:59 p.m. So I just say the class ends at 11:59 p.m. because that defaults the deadline for assignment due dates to 11:59 p.m. It's kind of a nice caveat. As far as start time, you could keep that at that time, or like for me, I think mine starts at 9 a.m. in the fall, so I'll just change it to 9 a.m. But I don't think, honestly, that really does anything. It does if you're forcing them to log into MyOpenMath separately and do all their homework there versus in Canvas. But remember, if you're embedding in a Canvas, that 9 a.m. is not really going to do anything for you. Self-enrollment, again, you can leave that checked. Everything's defaulted properly here, so you don't have to worry about that. Let's see. Yeah, everything's defaulted properly. The next subgroup is the LMS integration. This is basically the Canvas integration. This is not defaulted properly. Definitely check this. Allow the LMS to set the assignment due dates because you want to, as the instructor, honestly, you want to work within Canvas. And so you're going to set the due dates in Canvas and all that stuff. Make sure you just check that. You can, if you forgot to, you can always go back and make this change later on. Okay, so don't freak out if you forgot to do it. Additional options. I'm just going to mention this as a quick aside. If you're willing to allow students to turn in homework late every once in a while, in MyOpenMath, that's called using a late pass. It's basically turning in a little late pass and they get a certain number of hours added to the original due date and time. So for me, unfortunately, I do it by hours, but that basically right there, that 168 extends the original due time by 7 days. And they have up to 5 late passes throughout the semester. And this is just because students, weird things happen during the semester. They have to work late, whatever it is. They forgot that an assignment was due. This just allows them to extend the original due date by 1 week. And they can do that up to 5 times throughout the semester. You could change that. You could say, I don't want any late passes. You can change it to 0. You can change it to 1, 5, 10, 20, whatever you want. And you can also change the number of hours to extend by. If you only want a 24-hour extension, that's fine. Just a little bit of an aside here. If it is the case that, let's say that you're extending due dates by 24 hours. If a student logs in and they realize, oh man, it's been 36 hours since the homework was due. If they spend 1 late pass, it will extend that original due date only by 24 hours. So if it's 36 hours after the original due date already, they still won't be able to access it. They'll have to spend 2 late passes to open up that homework so that the original due date has been extended by 2 sets of 24 hours, or in other words, by 48 hours. This is why I extended by a week. It's just to avoid that frustration. So I just put 168 in here to say, you know what, as long as it's within a week of the original due date, then if you spend a late pass, the new due date for you is 1 week after the original due date. So usually it's not an issue. I've only had a couple students, maybe a handful of students in the time I've used MyOpenMath that have decided I'm going to open up that assignment that was due 3 weeks ago. And they burn 3 late passes just opening up that one assignment. It's a silly thing. And I tell them not to do it, but they do it anyway. The rest of this is not going to affect you. here if you're using Canvas. Okay. So you do not have to worry about, unless you want to be annoyed, don't click the send me a message when students enroll. That's just an annoyance. You don't need that. Everything else is defaulted properly. Okay. I don't think there's anything else I need to mention there. Okay. So I'll click submit and that will build the entire course for you. This piece right here, honestly, at within the Los Rios Community College District, this is automatic behind the scenes stuff. So you do not have to worry about what you see on the screen. And if you're really worried about it, you can take a screenshot of it, or you can see it later on when you enter into the course. But we at CRC and within Los Rios, don't worry about this. This is to create the link between your course, your MyOpenMath course, and your Canvas course. And it will automatically link without this information the very first time that you open up your Canvas course and you've already imported the assignments. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. So entering the course, here we are. Boom. Your course is done. It's created. Obviously, everybody has their own shtick as far as how they want assignments due and all that fun stuff. But I recommend at this point to go through and look at the homework assignments. So I just opened up chapter 2 in the section 2.2 homework assignment here just to take a look at it. If you were to click on the link there, it's going to open the assignment as if you're a student. So rather than doing that, go to the gear icon and let's take a look at the questions. And you can see it's already pre-populated with a group of questions. Now you can see I have lengthy homework assignments, so you might want to reduce this down. The homework has 24 questions in it. And you can see it looks like it has a lot more, doesn't it? Looks like it has quite a few. And that's because some questions, like question 14, it takes one of these 8 questions. So when a student logs in, let's say I have a student, Ahmad, and a student, Becca, and they're both working on question 14, it is likely the case they have 2 completely different question 14s. Even if they have the same question number 14, in other words, even if they both got this problem right here, question number 14, 48, 47, even if they both got that, this might be Ahmad's version. Note the numbers 253 right there. And yeah, 253. And Becca's version might be this one. It's the same structure, just different numbers. So even within a question, a specific question, the numbers are randomized. The difficulty level is the same. Okay. The way I've structured the buckets, I call this a bucket of questions. So this group of questions is a bucket of questions for question 14, is that they all test the same or assess the same skill. It's just with different functions. So you can see, like, if a student got this question number 48, 47. Oh, actually, I don't know if you can see this because I only shared my main screen. Can you guys see? You can see this? Good. If a student got 48, 47, they're dealing with tangents. If a student got 48, 52, they're dealing with cosines. That's all. And student who got 48, 53 is dealing with exponentials. But it's still the same skill set. It's building a table of values and investigating this idea of a limit numerically. So you could spend an inordinate amount of time going through this and removing questions that you just don't like or adding questions you do like or whatever it may be. I highly recommend just starting with this base set of questions. However, if you want to add a question, I'll show you how to do that right now. Removing questions is easy. If you want to remove a question, just check the box and click on remove. Easy. But if you want to add questions or look at alternative questions, you can see down here at the very bottom of the page, there's potential questions. And if I click this down arrow here, it gives me kind of a list of areas where to choose questions from. So I can look at all libraries. That's a big no-no because that's literally 1.4 million questions. You don't want to do that to yourself. So instead, you're going to look at select libraries. And when I select libraries, it'll showcase libraries that already questions are being chosen from here. I'm just going to pretend as though there's nothing picked. So these are all the libraries within MyOpenMath. A little bit of a fair warning to anybody who's never used MyOpenMath. The vast majority, if not all the questions, honestly, have been coded by faculty. That's both good and bad. It's good in that faculty have a really good idea of what students need to kind of cover. And they're really fond of fun problems. So you'll see some really fun problems in here. The bad is that not all faculty are good at coding. And so really, when you're looking for questions, I highly recommend looking for questions that have been used quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the calculus library here, since we're talking about calculus. I'll go to differential calculus, Calc 1, and I'll go to limits because this is a limits topic. And then within that limits topic, there's all these different subtopics. Now, this assignment has to do with numerical investigation of limits, and I see limits from graphs or estimation. I'll go ahead and choose that. If I use that library, you'll see it orders them by how old they are, basically. So this is one of the earliest questions in the system. If I scroll down, it goes to 765,426. I don't even know what that one is there for, but and there are even more results beyond that. So there are quite a few questions. It only shows 200 on each page. And this is why I say you should probably start with the questions that I've already picked, because I've gone through, I've used the system for a bunch of years. I've meticulously chosen questions that I think are good levels. But if you want the option to look at other questions, preview them. Go through and take a look. If they're bold, or sorry, if they're not grayed out, they are not currently in the assignment. But if they are grayed out, like this one right here, which I'll preview, they are currently in the assignment. That's our friendly little tangent problem right there. If you want to add a problem to the assignment, click that little checkbox and you can click add down here and it'll add it right to the assignment right then and there. Really nice thing to note when you're adding questions. How many times has it been used? 1,157 times. I feel pretty safe with a question that's been used that many times. Also, if you hover over the average time, you can see the average score on the first try on that question. And the, let's see, average time, the first try of that question, and the number of students who have attempted that question in the system. So it gives you a really good feel of, okay, this has been vetted. I, again, highly recommend just sticking with what I've selected, mainly because I have a list of coders that I like and a list of coders that I know do not know how to code. And so I really do not include those people who don't know how to code. I don't include their coding in here or their questions in here. But if you want to risk it at your own risk, because it frustrates students when they get a question that they do answer correctly, but because it's been coded improperly, it doesn't give them credit. So just be aware of that. Can you funnel this down? Oh yeah, Andy.
Question. When you're adding a question that you didn't create, do you actually go through and solve it and make sure that it's correct?
No, I don't have the time.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have the time. I usually, if it's been used a lot, it is usually correct. However, I have found questions that have been coded in the system for 12 years and are incorrect. They've been incorrect the entire time. And when I find them, I report them to the coder. And that's if you're going to test out a question, let's say that you test out this question and you find out that it's actually incorrect. Luckily, there's a little link right there that says message owner. And if I click that, it'll email the owner and I can describe like, oh, there's a problem with this. I can insert a picture, whatever. And David, who actually is the person who kind of runs this system, he's one of the main coders, and he's really good at getting back to people and fixing things very quickly. Usually, I really do trust his questions above most other people's, but there are some people that are great coders as well beyond just David. So don't just stick with David's questions. Try everybody else's too if you have the option. So that's a kind of a brief, how do I select questions for an assignment? Now, if you're not copying a course, so Let's say that you're just starting with a bare bones course and you're like, man, I want to create my own assignment. How do you do it? Let's just cover that. Because really, when you're building something from MyOpenMath, is really to give assignments. And so most people want to know, like, how can I create an assignment from scratch? How can I add questions? The easiest way to create an assignment is just go to add an item. And you can see assignments are the same thing as assessments. So I'm just click add assessment. By the way, you saw a lot of, let me hop back real quick. You saw a lot of other options there. Most of those the students will never see. Like inline text, that's like, gosh, I don't even think I have inline text on here, but if I added something to inline text, the students would never see it because they don't log in on MyOpenMath. They're in Canvas. If I added a link, they wouldn't see it. If I added a forum, they definitely wouldn't see it. Forums in MyOpenMath cannot be transferred to Canvas, and forums in Canvas cannot be transferred to MyOpenMath. They don't; those two don't talk to each other. So don't worry about the forums. I've never added a wiki or a drill, so I couldn't tell you about that. A block is what these folders here are. It's just an organizational tool. Again, if you do use organizational tools like these blocks, when you import into Canvas, it will import. Get out of student view here. It'll import into Canvas. Yes, I want to leave that page as folders within the modules area. So let me just go to the modules area and show you. When I imported my Math 400 into Canvas from MyOpenMath, it kept the same structure, the folder structure from MyOpenMath. In fact, the units were like this. They import as their own modules. And then the section folders imported like this. So you can do a lot of great organization within MyOpenMath, wherever it went. This is the one we're working on. You could do a lot of your initial organization within MyOpenMath. Actually, I think I want to keep that one. By the way, when you create a new course, it always appears at the bottom. You can reorder that, but it's not a priority to talk about right now. So as far as adding items, all of these you're probably not going to deal with except for maybe adding a block if you want to organize things, and then adding an assessment within those blocks. I'm just going to add an assessment just to showcase it. And then maybe I'll add it within this block right here. Okay, so add an assessment. When you add an assessment, you give it a name, assignment 1 or assignment week 1. Let's say you do it by week. Good for you. You can put a summary on there. That's if you were here early or if you saw it at the beginning, that's my calculator statement that I give to students, like, please try these by hand unless it says use a calculator. The due dates are going to be set by Canvas because of the way we set up the course. So you don't really have to worry about these settings here. One thing I highly recommend, and I'm not going to go through everything here, I'm just going to give you the heavy hitting good pieces. I highly recommend keeping assignments open for practice. That is, after the assignment is due, this allows a student to then reopen it without adjusting their score so they can practice when it comes to exam time. It's just a good habit. Okay. The rest of these are kind of important. So it's going to take a little bit for me to talk about this. So I recommend displaying one question at a time rather than all questions, because if you have the system load all questions, the students are going to have to scroll forever to look at all the questions, especially if the questions are multiple parts and have images. It's just an annoyance. They don't like it. You will learn that very quickly. So just have it at one question at a time. Unless you're using them, if you're going to use it for a quiz, display them all at once, but quizzes shouldn't be a ton of questions, right? So displaying all at once, I usually do for quizzes, but one at a time for regular homework assignments. Let's see, homework style. That's what I do, which basically means if you're allowing multiple tries on questions and multiple versions on a question or on an assignment, that they can regenerate the question, not the entire silly assignment. So homework style is kind of the preferred method. And then number of versions. Okay, let's talk about this. Number of versions is, let's just say question number one is an arithmetic problem or something like that. If you want to allow students to have different versions of that they can, let's say they try the first version, they just can't get it. There's a button that says, would you like another version? They click that and it generates a whole different version of that question. If you want that, go ahead and set that right now. So you can say, I want 3 different versions of this that they can generate at most. But if you could apply a penalty. I don't anymore. I used to, but you could say like, if they get it right with the first version, they'll get 100%. But if they get it right, if they went to the second version and they finally got it right, you could have it deduct 10%. So they only get 90%. This is very kind of excess, I think. I used to do this when I first was teaching because I was a control freak about that stuff. And if you're that way, I don't blame you. I was that way as well, but I don't recommend it. It's just a little much for students. So I don't take off points. I basically get full credit if they eventually can get it right. But you have the options. You can read them here if you want. Then within a version,
I just want to pause on that really quick.
Sure.
Because that to me also just by penalizing him, it's a little bit punitive. And even if they have to do it 6 times, they finally got it, right? So they've practiced. So I do love the idea of giving them the opportunity to do multiple versions, but not penalizing them.
Yeah. I used to be such a jerk about it. I'd be like, yeah, if you go to the next version, it's going to be 10% off or 20% off. Now I'm just like, listen, as long as you get it right, I don't care. I give them 3 versions, and then I give them 5 tries on every version. So question number 1 comes up, and they have 5 tries to get it right. If they can't get it right within 5 tries, it'll pop up with a button that says, sorry, I'm not going to give you another try on this. Try a new version, basically. Okay. And I don't take points off for that either, but you can if you want to. These drop downs right here during the assessment show scores on the question immediately. Yeah, you can see there's actually not even an option to choose not to show the score. You want to tell them that they're right. The only time that'll give you another option is if it's a quiz. So if you have it all questions at once, or if you have it, quiz style, then you can opt to not have whether they're right or wrong displayed, because that makes sense for quizzes. But for homework style, obviously you want to let them know, yeah, you got it right, rather than having to guess, did I get that right? Should I move on? Should I not? During the assessment, show answers. I actually usually do this one after the last try or jump to answer button, but you could do after last try. What does that mean? It means like they're going through, and if they eventually get it right, let's say I give 5 tries. If they get it right on the first, second, third, fourth try, well, they know what the answer is. They got it right. If they can't get it right by that 5th try, well, this setting will then say, well, you'd used up all your tries. Here was what the answer was. Sorry you didn't get it. Luckily, they have another version they could just generate up and try again, right? But I like the second option. The second option basically says they try it on the first try and they're like, I don't get it. Okay, let me try it again. Try it on the second. Now, if you allow 5 tries, they have to burn through all 5 tries before they get to see the answer. Having that setting right there, should have zoomed in from the get-go. Having that setting right there just allows them to say, okay, I'm not getting it. Let me jump to the answer. So they can click this jump to the answer and it'll showcase what the answer is, and then say, sorry, you've used up your tries on this version, but let's generate another version. It's really, we're trying to teach them, right? So it's really good that it gives them the opportunity to see the solution or the answer, sometimes the full solution if you allow that. Okay. So I recommend that setting. Students can view their work in the gradebook. Yes, immediately. In other words, can they see what they've typed in? Of course. They typed it in, they should be able to. But if you don't want them to, you have options. Really, immediately is the best one. Students can view their scores in the gradebook. Yes. All right, it makes sense. Students can view correct answers in the gradebook. Obviously, that's an after the due date or never. So I always leave it as after the due date. That is, after the assignments due, they go in the grade book, they can see the actual answers at that point. If you never want them to see the answers, I don't see why you would choose that, but there is an option. And then this is also where you can set the default gradebook category. Now, something I should mention, you're eventually going to grab all these and throw them into Canvas. And Canvas has gradebook categories as well. When you export your MyOpenMath course into Canvas, you, during that export process, can opt to carry these gradebook categories with it, so it sets them up in your Canvas course for you. I recommend that. So I generally just set up, the gradebook category here, just select homework, and that way when I import this into my Canvas, it already throws that assignment into the homework category. I don't have to touch it. Really nice. And let's see. All right. And then under additional display, I know I spend a lot of time on this, but it is important. These settings are very important. And once you have them set, you can then, from that point forward, every time you build an assessment, you can just copy these settings. So set it once and then copy forever. It's a great way to do it. Display options, honestly, their students are never going to see this, but I use the assessment name. I'll show you why, actually. Let me go to, I can't go to MyOpenMath here, but let me go to MyOpenMath here and I'll show you why quickly. So I'm just going to jump into my Math 400 class. This is what it means by show display name. It's showing the assignment name in my view of this calendar. Your students will never see this, but it's just convenient for you. So I recommend using the assessment name. If you want to shuffle the assignment order, you're more than welcome to. I do this actually for quizzes, but you have a lot of options here. I don't do it for homework assignments because I like the scaffold in homework assignments. So you'll see if you're copying the master courses at CRC that the assignments are scaffolded so that they build the skills to where the end of the assignment, they're kind of using all the skills that were built up to that point. The beginning are kind of the easier problems. That's kind of the way I like it. But you could adjust that and have it randomized or whatever you want. Provide show work boxes. I would normally say set this to no because coded questions that require file uploads already have a button for that. So you don't need to have this set. However, if you're doing a quiz, I definitely would set this because then you could say, okay, well, I would like you to show your work. So we have a timed quiz, they're doing a timed quiz, and then they can upload their work into the quiz, even if the question was a computational question that normally wouldn't have a file upload button. Setting this here forces a file upload button. But generally, for homework assignments, you could just leave that off. If a question required a file upload, it will already have that forced in there. Okay. The other options are kind of silly. They're not silly. There are use cases for them. I rarely check any of these. If it's a quiz or maybe an exam, if you're teaching online, all students having the same version of a question, I think is important. But you could do that or not. Okay. And as far as display options, that's all you really need to consider there. Time limit. If you're allowing late passes, make sure it's defaulted to that. If you don't want to allow the use of multiple late passes, you could restrict it right here, but I'm not going to do that. But you could do that. You could also restrict them by date. You can also restrict, give a time limit on an assignment. That's if it's a quiz, you could do that. I leave it blank. You can require passwords. That's great, by the way. Passwords are great for quizzes. Awesome. They're actually really good for scaffolding too. So if you don't want a student to enter into homework assignment 1.2 until they've got a certain score on section 1.1, you could just set in a password. And then when students go to access 1.2, they say it's asking me a password. And you say, let me look at your score. And then you give them the password. I don't normally do that, but you can do that. You can also have the assignment appear based upon scores on prerequisite assignments if you want to as well. Okay. The most important section, in my opinion, or the second most important section, is helps and hints. The point of an assessment, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, everybody has their own strong opinion about assessments, but my opinion is it's a learning tool. So I always show hints if they're available. So if a problem has been coded to give a hint, I like to leave this on so it shows that student that hint, like, hey, don't forget you have to use scientific notation or something like that. I love it when a problem has embedded video. So I leave that checked. That way, students, if they're struggling, they could see, oh, I could watch a video to help me out with this. Sure. Great. I generally turn off the written examples button. And the only reason why is because this is just for me personally, is because it will take not the same randomization, but the same question the student has with different numbers, and it shows them step by step how to solve that. Students tend to mimic that. And I like to just keep that turned off, so that really they can watch videos, whatever, or they can email me, but I don't want them just to mimic a step-by-step solution. That's not, in my opinion, a good way to learn mathematics. So everybody has their thing. If you want to leave that on, whatever. Show message instructor about this question. Yeah, that's the one where it allows students to message you within the question and link back to the question. I would definitely leave that on. Post to forums don't work if you're embedding in Canvas, so just leave that unchecked. What is add a resource? Don't worry about it. If it's great if you're going to embed a calculator within the assignment, but most students have a calculator, so you don't have to worry about that. It's really good during quizzes. If you want to force the student to only use a specific calculator, you could say, well, I'm going to embed the calculator. I have to be able to spell it. And maybe you want https://www.desmos.com/scientific. Okay. And that way it provides a link within the problem to the Desmos scientific calculator. If you want to do that, more power to you. I do that during certain quizzes, but you don't have to. Leave this under yes. That's all I'll just say. The last piece, leave it as yes. No need for me to describe why. Count in the gradebook. Of course, everything here is default. Default on all these I recommend, except for this one, actually. This second one that says minimum score to receive credit. I actually leave this, I change this to either 40 or 50%. And there's a very specific reason. I tell my students day one, and I never get a complaint. Students don't get angry about it. So if I set it to 50%, it means that the students won't see a score in the grade book until they get to at least 50% on the assignment. They'll see like whether they're right or wrong, and they can do extra tries and stuff like that. But the reason why I do that is because of the students. This has been an issue in mathematics for years. People don't teach math, may not know this, but we have a lot of students who like financial aid, and they'll sit in our classes doing the least, literally like a problem, so they can just be counted as present. And so I tell them, if you're going to do that, I'm going to force you to work. You'll have to get at least 50% to get a score on an assignment, period. And never do I have an issue. Never do I have an issue with it. So I personally like to do that. If you don't want to do that, leave that as 0. That's okay, whatever. Other things. You can apply a penalty for a late pass, but again, it's a learning environment. So your choice, but I don't like to do that. And then don't worry about group assessment. Now, that was a lot that I just said to create an assignment. Here I go to create. And we've created the assignment. And let me zoom out a little bit. And you can see it brings you to the question selector. And we talked about how to grab questions. I'm just going to select questions. And let's say that you're building these. You don't like to give assessments per section, but let's say you want to do it per week. And you know that by the end of week 1, you'll have finished sections 1.1, or I'm sorry, 2.1 and 2.2 in Calculus 1. If that's you, if you're a bi-week person, the best way to search for questions is to search through the assessments that are embedded in this master course. Because it'll just say, oh, you could say like, oh, I want to look at assignments 2.1 and 2.2, because I know at the end of week 1, those are the assignments I'm going to pull from to make my own assignment. You could totally do it that way. So if I click on use assessments, here's all the questions in those 2 assessments, and I can select a handful of problems. I'm just going to randomly select ones here. There, I've grabbed 4, and I'll add using the defaults. That just means add using whatever defaults I set up, which are 1 point per problem. And there we go. And now if I want to preview the assignment, I can. Teacher preview is probably a better preview for us. And you can see those are the problems I've selected. You can also add groups of questions if you're interested. So if I go down here and I select maybe these 1, 2, 3, I can click this up arrow and add as a group. And when I do that, you'll see question number 5, it picks one of these 3. If you want it to pick 2 of those 3, there you go. It picks without replacement, which means it picks 2 different problems from that bucket of 3. If you don't mind it duplicating, like picking 2 possibly of the same questions, then you can do with replacement. It's a very nice, robust system. Really, really flexible. I'm just going to click done here, and you'll see there's my assignment because that's where I added it. Now, you're thinking maybe, do I have to go through that whole assessment screen every time I want to build an assessment? No. If I add another assessment, I call it week 2, I can go down here and I can say copy options from, and I can just find where my assignment week 1 was. There we go. And it's done, right? Then I just click on create. If I had some summary information that I had in this text box up here that I want to copy, I would check that as well. If I had some introduction or instructions that I want to copy, I'd click that as well. Otherwise, it's going to click all the basic settings. So that's what I was saying earlier, that if you do it right the first time, then you don't have to worry about, going through and fine tuning that every single time. So I'm going to click out of this. That's the basics of setting up the course and building the assignments, copying a course from somebody else. You don't have to copy from somebody at CRC. You can copy a templated course from elsewhere. And I didn't have the chat window open, but now I do. So if you do have questions, you can type them in the chat. If you find out that maybe there was a setting in all of your assignments that you're just like, oh, that's terrible, I don't like that. Or let's also pretend that you copy the master course for Math 400, let's say, and you're like, I'm going to just use this. But I don't like the fact that Roy has this set up to where when I look at the assignment settings here, I don't like it that he gives 2 versions with 99 tries on each version. I just hate that for some reason. I want it to be 5 and 5. You can mass change all the assignments at once. It's actually very easy to do. So if there's something that you just want to tweak on all the assignments at once, there's a little topic subgroup right here called mass change. Really nice. And so you can click on mass change assessments. It defaults to selecting every stupid assessment you have. So if you know you're only going to change the homework assessments, you can select only the homeworks. Of course, everything in mine is set up as a homework except for the study guides. So it's going to immediately select everything, but whatever. And then you go to change the settings. And if you go to change those settings, let's say the number of versions, you want 5 versions, and the number of tries per version, you want 5, that will change all of those homework assignments to have 5 versions and 5 tries. However, notice this went red because you're changing something about an assessment as far as this material. And so it's going to force you to change everything in here. So to ensure consistency, if you change one of these settings, you need to change them all. So I just make sure, oh, it's a homework, 5 tries, 0% penalty, 0% penalty. I want to show the scores on each question immediately. Show answers after last try or jump to answer button. Students can view their work in the grade book after the due date. Actually, yeah, I want them to be able to see it immediately, honestly. Students can view their scores in the grade book immediately, and students can view correct answers in the grade book after the due date. Once I've done that, it's green, and now I can go down to apply changes. Or you could change helpful hint stuff and whatever. You can change all that stuff. But if I click apply, it now has changed all my assessments to be 5 versions, 5 tries instead of 2 versions and 99 tries. Very nice. Now you're saying, okay, I think I get it. How the heck am I going to move this into Canvas? So let's do it very quick. Export. You're going to export from MyOpenMath, and then in Canvas, you're going to import that into your Canvas course. I cannot show you the import step because I don't have dummy courses in Canvas, but I can at least mimic what you would do. So the export step I can do. I'm going to export the entire course, or you can actually select, if you only want to export one chapter at a time, you could do that too. So to answer the question that might be burning in your mind, yes, you can export a chapter at a time and import that chapter into your Canvas course. And then a month later, export chapter 2, import that into the same Canvas course. It's okay to import multiple times into the same course, but try not to import the same assignments into the Canvas course because they'll overwrite, and you don't want to do that. So just make sure you import distinctly different chunks of material. So most people are probably going to do individuals just because they don't set up everything all at once. Unless you're okay with the default course setup that I have for whatever master course you're doing, then export the entire course. My RLMS is Canvas. Yay. You do not have to at CRC or even within Los Rios, you do not have to include app config. It's automatic. So don't check that. In fact, just don't check that. Okay. Default, yes, I like to include the gradebook categories because if you're importing one of the master courses, the templated courses, the homeworks are already set as homework categories. The quizzes are already set as quiz categories. The study guides are already set as study guide categories. And so it's nice to kind of pull those into Canvas and already have the categories set. You're not going to use MyOpenMath due dates, so I'd uncheck that. And then leave that last one checked. Allow Canvas to set the due dates. That is a definite. Otherwise, that's all you need. I do not recommend opening MyOpenMath assignments in a new tab or window just because of blockers and stuff like that. I don't recommend that. So then you click download export cartridge. You can see it up in my upper right hand corner that it's already done that. It's very fast. And then you go to, like I said, normally you would have new courses. I don't have a new course down here, so I'm just going to show you the idea of it. So if you have an empty course that you're about to import to before the semester starts, you go to import existing content, select what you're going to import, which will be a Canvas export or course export package. You're going to choose the file you just downloaded. I'm not going to do it. I'm not even close to doing it because I don't want to do this for this course. And you click on all content and import. Now, if you're importing the entire course all at once, it'll take 5 to 10 minutes for it to actually ingest all that material. When you're done, if you're doing this for Math 400, you will get the following in your modules area, I should say. Just shrink this down so it makes sense. You get the units that were listed in MyOpenMath. These ones right here. I relabeled them when I get into Canvas, but Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, Unit 4, Unit 5. Okay, you'll get those folders. I rename them. So you can see I renamed them as units, limits, derivatives, applications and derivatives, and integrals, whatever. And then within each of those, you have the little subsections and whatnot. And then I personally in Canvas add my own lecture videos. That's it. Final step. Final step, and I would say probably the most important step. is now that you've imported, you actually technically need to link your MyOpenMath course to your Canvas course. You thought that you just did it by importing it, but that doesn't actually link it. So here's the little, not secret step, it's just the step you have to do. Click on any of the assignments you just imported, and you won't see it because unfortunately, something happened, something broke. Let me go back to, let me try something, one of my other assignments. Let me just go to this one right here. Hopefully this works. There we go. All right. So when you do that, notice it for a moment there, it said connecting to MyOpenMath. The first time you open up any assignment, when you first import, the very first time you import, this will come up with you better log in to link your course to MyOpenMath. So use your MyOpenMath login, and that will link forever that course in Canvas to your MyOpenMath course you just imported from. Done. That's it. Read the directions when you do that. Just this is a friendly piece of advice because I can't show you it, unfortunately. Read the directions when you import like that, because there'll be something that's poorly worded that says, hey, which course would you like to connect? And it'll say the course that you copied from, the course that you're linking, or would you like to make a copy of that course? It'll give you a drop down. Select the option to directly link to your course. Otherwise, what it's going to do, and it's not an issue, not a massive issue, but it'll create a duplicate of this. So you'll have two of these courses in your MyOpenMath, and it's a big headache. So just read the directions when you do that one little step. Be very meticulous. Read those directions and go, I don't want it to make another copy of that. I have a good copy of it. I just want it to link directly to it. That's it. There's a million other questions you could have, but that's the basics. I didn't talk about how to code your own questions because that's advanced.
Yeah, that's definitely advanced. And
Yeah,
I know we're already over time, but I have two
sure,
questions.
sure.
One is, like, Hinku is here today, and if he is looking for questions specific to, he teaches economics, I noticed that one of the libraries was finance, but
Yeah,
that would be an area, like, he could create an assessment and put in all of his parameters and then start looking in that library to see.
yeah, absolutely. So MyOpenMath originally started just for mathematics, and then it's grown. It's grown quite a bit. And so if I go into, let me go into, this is my actual, let me go to the one that we just created actually. Hold on a second. Down here. Sorry, I have too many courses. But just to showcase that, because it's a great question. I often forget so many other disciplines can use MyOpenMath. It's just slips my brain. So if you click on, when you go to add remove questions from an assessment, if you click on select libraries here, you'll see most of it is math, but then you all of a sudden see chemistry, accounting, let's see, physics, finance, astronomy, geometry, engineering, statistics, da 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 da. So do we have an economics in here?
I didn't see economics as its own category, but I did see finance.
Yeah, you see finance, but that might be like, you can see the subcategories there. But what's nice is, let's say that you really want to drill down. You want to find something that's economics. Here's a little trick in MyOpenMath. A lot of people don't know about it. Textbook specific might be the way to go. If you click on that, you'll see there are a lot of textbooks in here, and you might find an econ textbook that you're like, yep, okay, that's good. I don't see one, but if you found one, that'd be awesome. Um, Another place to look, by the way, and this is, I often, when I give talks about MyOpenMath, I often forget to mention this. MyOpenMath, the community is amazing. And so when you log into MyOpenMath, you'll see these new forum posts. That's from the general MyOpenMath community, the instructors who are using it. And you can search those posts for economics. So I'll just go down here to, I have to go to the support course because that's what it's called. And then I'm just going to go to the forums. So support course is what I clicked on. Now I'm going to go to the forums, and it'll show me all the forums. Give it a moment. And I'm going to type in economics once it gets there. It's just going to take a bit. Economics. And you might find that somebody says, oh, you might find that nobody's ever titled anything economics. That's a very unfortunate. I could look, no, that's, yeah, I did spell economics correctly. So nobody's ever titled a post economics, but it doesn't mean that there are not economics questions, because another way I'd go about it is get back down to the course that we just created and go to one of the assessments, and I'll just go to questions here. And what I'll do is I'll search all libraries this time, which is usually a no-no because there's way too many questions. But if you type in economics first, and then maybe I'll go to econ second, you'll see there are some economics questions, very, very few. What is this, like a dozen or half, maybe 10? There's some in there. So for individuals who are in a different discipline who might not have, let me see if econ's represented. Well, then this comes up with economy. Uh, um, so if you're looking to build questions, that is a daunting task, but it can be done. But I'd have to give a different talk on that. And there are easy ways to do it, not the talk, but the build questions. And there are fancy ways to do it. First time through is always too easy. Always too easy, because you can knock out one question every 3 to 5 minutes, and that gives you a basis to work off of. And then in the future, if you say I want to make them snazzy, then you can start going into half-hour per question coding sessions. But you can actually code them in very quickly, to build them. And in fact, we have some people in the community use ChatGPT to build questions. They'll just say, create a question for MyOpenMath, or maybe they'll say, like, create a question using Perl script for this section in a math, in an intermediate algebra textbook. And it'll create an arbitrary question, and you can copy and paste that in and just say, that'll be my code for now. So there are a bunch of ways you can speed through and do that.
Yeah, I know, Hanku, don't get discouraged, because I know that there's work actively happening to work in economics and other areas. And I think Sac City, there might be even one of their faculty who is on sabbatical working on something. So
yeah,
I
can I
think that there will be
ask?
some movement.
Yeah, can I ask some question? Is it
Sure.
time?
Yeah.
I mean, because I was a little late, so
Yeah.
basically I open up my OpenMath, and it says at the end to request, I need to request instructor account, right? And click
Yeah.
the finishing up to use this system, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, I go through like your way, and then to import it and export it and import it on the canvas. But uh, another thing is, this is just for the assessment, or you can create pages too, like some content. What do you
You
think?
could create content, but you
Yeah,
use Canvas as well, right?
you're right. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
So
just wondering.
yeah. Oh, okay. If you're just
Yeah,
wondering, yes, you
yeah,
can
yeah,
create
yeah,
content here.
yeah.
And you can create organizational structures and
Right.
assessments and quizzes. Um, I think that for accessibility purposes, I think
Yeah.
the content creation tools in Canvas are probably better for
Better.
most
Okay.
things.
Okay.
But you can
Yeah.
create.
Also, I'm just wondering, is there any other workshop for the coding itself on the
Yeah, I can hold
my
a
lab?
coding. I've done it several
Yeah,
times in the past. I can easily
yeah,
hold something for
yeah.
coding, because you have like a coding 101, which is basically like, how do I throw a question together in
Yeah.
5 minutes? And
Okay.
then you have like coding 102, which is,
Yeah,
how do I make that more robust, add
yeah.
randomization, that type of
Right,
thing. Um,
right.
so we could totally
Yeah.
set something like that up. I have no problem with that. Yeah.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
think
Then,
have been through the OERI. I think there have been some of those workshops too, Hanku.
mhm.
So I'll go
Yeah.
back and look and see if I can find you some
Okay.
recordings, but that might
Okay.
help as well. My
Right.
other question, Roy, was, which sort of relates to what Hanku just said. So you downloaded that the Canvas, like the cartridge for the assessments. And I know that you also use textbooks that you have created, OER textbooks. Do you then like download that as well and put your
Yeah.
textbook in and sort of organize? So you might have them, read a chapter and then do one of then put in the MyOpenMath assessment. And
Right.
that's
Yeah, it's
Right.
two different working pieces. Yeah, so
Yeah.
the assessment system that exports
Right.
is one cartridge that you import, and then the the LibreText, if you're using that system,
Mhm.
you can I would compile, and then you can download import into your LMS from that. So they're
Yeah.
two totally different beasts.
Yeah.
For now, I'm using Canvas to create assignment, but what's the like major difference if you do on
What's the
Canvas?
advantage? Yeah, so you have long-term control with
Mm,
MyOpenMath. The beautiful thing with MyOpenMath is you have long-term control. In other words, let's say this semester in Canvas, you created, let's pretend, 20 assignments, and each assignment had
mm,
10 questions. While
mm,
it is true that you can copy those over to
yeah.
future semester Canvas courses,
Mm,
it's a little bulky, I think, a little clunky.
mm, mm,
And I just think MyOpenMath, the system's super nice. Once you get used to it, it's super nice to import in. You can keep that course kind of ready for any given semester, and you can
mm,
pull it all in at once rather than the finicky
mm,
way Canvas does it. You can also make really nice questions very quickly
mm,
in
mm,
MyOpenMath. You can
mm,
really tweak it down, and you have a lot more response styles in MyOpenMath
mm.
than Canvas has. So
Okay.
you can have file uploads. You can, which I know Canvas can as well, and image uploads, which Canvas can as well. Numerical inputs, free response, drawing pads, all this stuff. They're within MyOpenMath, which is super nice. You just have a lot of um, options as far as questions go. Yeah.
Is
So
there like discussion style question too? Discussion board,
that's a
something like
great question. Yeah, no, anything that's discussion based is going to be
yeah.
Canvas. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
Canvas is better.
Canvas is good for that. My open
Yeah.
math,
Yeah.
its discussion board doesn't work very well
Okay.
for
Yeah.
that. But as far as
Okay.
question styles
Right.
within or question types within my open math,
Mm-hmm.
you can see them
Mm-hmm.
all right here. Numerical
Mm-hmm.
responses, calculated numerical responses, which are like with pi
Mm-hmm.
or e or root 2 or something like that. Multiple
Yeah.
choice, multiple answer, matching, functions where you can have them answer with an actual function, strings, essays, drawing, all this stuff.
Okay.
There's a whole chemical pad equations. That's if you're a chemistry instructor. So there's a whole ton of different styles of questions that you can have in MyOpenMath versus Canvas. It has everything Canvas has plus some.
So just make sure, is it completely free for student and myself?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is 100% free. Absolutely. And it's been
Yeah.
around for years, a long, long time, at least 2010.
And yeah. But we
Yes.
need the login information for student and myself too, right?
All you need is for yourself. You don't need any information. Students don't
Okay.
need to do anything.
Okay.
Once you link in Canvas, once you import your my open math course into Canvas and you provide that you link them,
Mm-hmm.
when your students log in and they go to
Mm-hmm.
do a homework assignment, they just
Mm-hmm.
open up the homework assignment. Like if I were to
From the Canvas, right?
in Canvas, yeah. So if I'm a
Yeah.
student, let me go into student view so you can see this. If I'm a student in Canvas, and let's say you're currently in section 4.4, let's just pretend,
Mm-hmm.
they would
Mm-hmm.
just click the assignment name. And when they click the
Yeah.
assignment name,
Automatic.
it automatically connects in the background. They don't even know. They don't
Mm-hmm.
know that they actually have it creates a uh, MyOpenMath account
Mm-hmm.
for them. And
Mm-hmm.
on your end, when you go to grade, I think it's one of the most beautiful things about MyOpenMath is grading in MyOpenMath to me is a
Mm-hmm.
ton easier than grading
Mm-hmm.
in Canvas. You know how it
Mm-hmm.
is to grade in Canvas if students upload images
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, So if I show you this, let me get to a course that has, actually, I think my 400 course does have images. If you, I can't open up the grades because it has student names, but if I click in there, you know, you can go through Speed Grader, right?
Mm-hmm.
In MyOpenMath, what I'm going to do is pull this off to the side so that you can't see it first. So let me get this set up so that I can just show you really quickly. And I have to, so you're going to see my eyes look one direction as I get the setup, and then I'm going to come back to the front real quickly. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, actually, I need to show you the first part first. So let me do this. So in MyOpenMath, you can grade everything there if you want to. You don't have to go to Canvas. And so
Mm-hmm.
how's that done? Well, if I want to grade 4.3, which was due on Wednesday the 3rd, I just go to grades. Now, when I click on grades here, it's going to show student names. So let me move this off so you can't see that. Okay. And I'm going to click on grades. And actually, it didn't show student names. That's good. So let me bring it back over. So this is what it does. It brings this up. Now, you look at this and you go, it's a bit of a mess. It's because I have a ton of problems. But you can grade them one by one. So I can grade problem 1. And when I do this, again, let me pull this off to the side, because MyOpenMath is geared for making it beautiful to grade. So I'm going to grade that first problem. Actually, I'm going to grade a problem. Shoot, these don't have uploaded problems. Let me find one that has uploaded problems real quickly. Hold on a second. I thought 4.3 did, but it doesn't. So let me go to 4.2, maybe theoretical interlude grades. Yes. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to grade a problem in MyOpenMath. And what I'm going to do first is hide the names so you can't see the names. Perfect. Good for me. Okay. So now I'm going to bring this over. All right. So when I clicked on, what I did is I clicked on grade problem number 3. Okay. So it shows everybody's responses to that single problem all in one screen. Not only
Mm-hmm.
that, but you can say hide any questions that people didn't answer so you don't have to look through unanswered homework. You can show all the answers at once, show all the work, preview all their files side by side. And it makes it really nice for grading, especially with uploaded handwritten work. It's really nice. Also, you can start by saying, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and grant everybody just from the beginning, because I know most people get this question right. I'm going to start by granting them full credit for the manually graded parts at first. So you click that, it would give them full credit. And then you can go through and go, no, that was wrong. So let me give them back to 0 on that or whatever. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a really fast way of grading. It is actually super fast. Also,
Mm-hmm.
what's cool is you can see I've hidden their names. And this
Mm-hmm.
is great for anonymity. You can
Mm-hmm.
also randomize the order so you don't know who you're grading at any given moment. It really
Mm-hmm.
does make it super nice. I
Mm-hmm.
really like their grading system. It is
Mm-hmm. Okay.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Even
I love that. It does take some of the
Mhm.
bias out of your
Yeah.
potential bias in
Yeah.
grading, right? So that's wonderful.
You get really used to their handwriting. And so you're just like, I know who this is, but you can't avoid
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I'll hold if there's not one available already, I'll hold a intro to, creating questions workshop if you want.
Yeah.
I know that my colleagues in the math department have asked
Yeah.
for that as well.
Okay.
And it's beneficial. It's great to see that you can throw a question together very quickly
Yeah.
without any background in coding. And then
Mhm.
if you do have some background, you can go even further with that if you want it, but you don't have to.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. All right, Andy, is there anything else?
I don't think so. I'm gonna stop the recording.
Okay.